In just over 2 months, it will have been 2 years since we inhabited the building on Save Road. It's a long time, isn't it? And here we are, nearly 2 years later, and we still have no building to call our own. We're not sure when or if we will ever get one. Some feel like we are wanderers. Some feel like we are a people in exile, like the ancient Israelites. Some feel like we are not Little Farms anymore. Some are discouraged. Some are disgruntled. Some are sad. I get it. God gets it. So what are we to do? What are we to do? The Spirit has told me that the best thing to do today is to take time to think about what is the purpose of the church. As stated in the New Testament in various places, that we need to take a few minutes to consider if Little Farms United Church of Christ has fulfilled the purpose of the church these last 2 years. Now we know from the earliest records of the church considered its purpose to be many things. Many recorded in the book of Acts. Like these, listen. They considered their purpose to be a gathering of people who were intent on following Jesus. Their purpose was to gather together, to spend time together, to share communion together, to share actual meals together. They believed their purpose was to gather and share the messages and the stories of Jesus. They believed their purpose was to pray together. They believed their purpose was to worship God together. They understood their purpose to be that they were to share of themselves and their resources to those in need. So, that being said, let's evaluate Little Farms United Church of Christ according to what the Scriptures tell us is the purpose of the church. Have we lived out the purpose of the church in these last 2 years that we've been away from 135 Save Road? Let's ask ourselves some questions. And I want you to answer me loudly and clearly. The early church was a gathering of people intent on following Jesus. Are we still a group of people who are intent on following Jesus?
Yes.
They were a community that spent time together. They enjoyed each other and loved each other and encouraged each other. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
We did it last Friday night at Eileen. They were a community who shared communion together. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
They shared meals together and laughed and cried together. Had fun times together. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
They prayed together for each other and for those around them. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
Your yeses are getting fainter.
Yes.
You know where I'm going. They learned about Jesus together. And they sought ways to align their lives more in line with Jesus' life. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
They worshiped God together in word and in song and in service. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
They shared their lives and their resources to help others and to care for and love those in need. Have we done that in the last 2 years?
Yes.
You have answered a hearty yes to each of these questions. So I think we can draw some conclusions today. As far as fulfilling what the earliest records of the purpose of the church are, we can acknowledge with joy that Little Farms has done that.
Yeah.
Little Farms has done that. In each of the listed areas, following Jesus, fellowshipping and enjoying each other, sharing meals together and communion together, learning about the ways and the messages of Jesus, praying together for each other and those around them, worshiping God, sharing of ourselves and our resources, Little Farms has fulfilled the purpose of the church.
Amen.
Little Farms has fulfilled the purpose of the church. From the New Testament and early Christian records, we know that the purpose of the church was never to have a building. But it was most assuredly to have an identity of love, to have an identity of compassion, an identity of welcome, an identity of study and prayer and worship. It was to have an identity of a people who gathered and were intent and committed to follow Jesus. It was a community who shared with those in need. Little Farms has done all of that. You agree?
Amen.
And we did it without a building. So let's rejoice that Little Farms has lived into the purpose of the church. That we have, without a building, been busy fulfilling the purpose of the church. When will we have a church building? I don't know. When will we have our own place? I don't know. But this we do know. We can rejoice and be thankful that we are still the church.
Amen.
We have been the church these last 2 years, and we will continue to be the church. We will continue to fulfill what the whole purpose of the church is. We are the church. Tell me, we are the church. And perhaps the Spirit is reminding us today that we have been the church for the last 2 years. Maybe the Spirit is calling us to focus more on purpose than place. The Spirit calling us to focus more on purpose than place. It's difficult for us. We're all about place in our lives. We have our homes, we have our stuff, we have our area, we have our territory. But when it comes to church, purpose is more important than place. And that Little Farms needs to focus more on continuing to be the church, investing our time and our energy and our commitment to that. I feel confident today that God sees Little Farms United Church of Christ. And God doesn't say, when y'all gonna get y'all a building? No. I think what God says, you are my church. Keep it up, my faithful ones. You are fulfilling that for which the church came into being to begin with. Thanks be to God.